2249 Towards the Ninth Heaven.
To make this fair, we'll verify every single member, regardless of their status or when they joined.
Chang Qing-yun continued.
After all, there's a chance this individual is in disguise or has assumed the identity of an existing member. Sound good? We'll start from those at the highest position and work our way down.
Old Man Bai said.
Do I need to prove my identity?
Su Jiechi suddenly asked.
And no, I think you're fine. Of course you do.
Lu Yutsong interrupted Chang Qing-yun.
It wouldn't be fair to the rest of the members if we, the leaders, don't do it first. Led by example, right?
Su Jiechi didn't argue with him and said.
Then let's do it right now. I'll even go first. Are you in a hurry to go somewhere?
Lu Yutsong stared at her with narrowed eyes and a provocative smile.
Isn't it obvious? I need to find that outsider to question him.
She said.
Are you sure you're not trying to hide him? Think how bad it'd look for you if you left now.
Old Man Bai said.
Moreover, we're not even prepared to begin the investigation.
Added Chang Qing-yun. After a moment of silence, Su Jiechi said.
Very well. I will remain here until every member has been verified.
She walked back to her seat with her usual calmness, though the faint irritation on her face was impossible to miss. Some time later, Old Man Bai spoke.
Let's begin by recalling our members. Since Lady Su insists on going first, we'll start with the ones recruited under her banner.
Every celestial overlord possessed a unique symbol they could pass down to their recruits. Anyone recruited by those recruits would also fall under that same banner, belonging to the celestial overlord who initiated the chain. And as their leader, the celestial overlord could give them direct commands.
I'll recall my members first, then.
Su Jiechi nodded.
Make sure you do it right there, where we can see everything.
Lu Yutsong said. Without hesitation, Su Jiechi ordered all members under her banner to return to the celestial overlord's headquarters. Once such a command was issued, her subordinates were obligated to comply. Anyone who failed to return within a certain time would be flagged. If someone was occupied and unable to return immediately, they only needed to acknowledge the order. Doing so would grant them additional time to comply. While the members under Su Jiechi's command started making their way to the headquarters, the others prepared for the verification, which required many pills and treasures. Meanwhile, Su Jiechi spoke to Senior by using voice transmission.
What do you think? Could Yuan really be responsible?
Senior Bai sighed.
I don't want to believe it, but it's very likely that he's involved.
He proceeded to reveal that he'd met with Yuan right before the meeting started, as well as their conversation. He told her about Yuan's odd response to the news and that he'd randomly apologized afterward.
However, he was only at the true immortal realm when I saw him. I cannot fathom how he managed to defeat the second squad of Heaven's Mandate with his level of cultivation. Commander Wong mentioned void manipulation. If Yuan had really achieved advanced void understanding, then it might be possible.
Su Jiechi said.
I know he's good at defying logic, but there should be a limit. I also don't understand why he'd even fight with Heaven's Mandate.
Senior Bai shook his head. The others in the room were aware of Su Jiechi and Senior Bai speaking to each other via voice transmission, but nobody tried to stop them, allowing them to talk in private.
I'm sure he has a good reason.
Despite the situation, Su Jiechi held faith in him. Of course, this was heavily due to Yuan being Tian Ningxia's reincarnation.
Where's Yuan right now?
She then asked.
I don't know, but he did say that he would be ascending to the ninth heaven soon.
I see.
What should we do about Yuan? Knowing him, he probably hid the truth, so we wouldn't be dragged into this or be directly involved, but I don't know what we should do now.
Senior Bai said in a perplexed tone. On one hand, he wanted to trust Yuan, yet on the other, the uncertainty left him unsettled. And while he didn't feel betrayed, he was definitely disappointed.
I will send someone to find him,
Su Jiechi said.
I'll decide what to do once I hear the story from his point of view.
All right. Time continued to pass, and one by one, the faction members under Su Jiechi's banner gathered at the headquarters in response to her command. None of them truly understood the situation, but they were certain it was connected to their sudden loss of karma. Once enough members had gathered, Su Jiechi explained the situation to them in full, leaving many of them dumbfounded.
I understand that this is highly irregular,
she said, her tone calm yet firm.
But the circumstances are unprecedented, so I ask for your understanding and cooperation.
Although the members were irritated by the situation, none of them blamed Su Jiechi. Instead, their anger was directed at Heaven's Mandate and its brazen behavior.
Don't worry, Celestial Overlord Su. We believe in you. How dare those bastards ask for Leader Su's memories?
Seeing their reactions, Su Jiechi couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt for lying to them, even offering a silent apology in her heart. However, this was how much she valued and trusted Yuan, whom she firmly believed to be Tianjing's reincarnation. Were it not for that, she would never dare to take such a risk. Meanwhile, after meeting with Senior Bai and leaving the myriad of techniques, Yuan headed straight for the stairway to heaven, ready to begin his ascent toward the ninth heaven.
It hasn't even been 100 years since you began your journey in the lower heavens, and you're already heading to the ninth heaven.
Xiaohua murmured as they approached the stairway to heaven, recalling their journey with a warm smile. 2250 The first trial.
When we reach the ninth heaven, do you think your supreme heaven's legacy will be fulfilled?
Yuan suddenly asked.
The legacy doesn't just require you to reach the ninth heaven. We will also need to reach a certain location, where we can get our exile curse removed. That place is likely crawling with the Celestial Emperor's people,
said Xiaohua.
So we can only get rid of the curse ourselves, huh?
Yuan mumbled as they arrived before the stairway to heaven. Yuan had expected crowds of cultivators eager to challenge the stairway to heaven, yet to his surprise, the area was completely deserted. Unbeknownst to him, the stairway could now only be attempted during designated periods, a rule that hadn't existed in the past, leaving him entirely unaware. This meant that nobody would be able to enter the stairway to heaven even if they wanted to sneak inside. However, Yuan wasn't just anyone. As the master of the stairway to heaven, he could easily enter even if the Celestial Emperor had placed restrictions on the treasure. Without thinking too much about it, Yuan jumped straight to the top of the staircase with a single smooth movement.
Tianer, open up,
he said out loud. The stairway to heaven immediately answered his will and opened its doors. Once he stepped inside, Yuan was greeted by Tianer.
Welcome back, Master. What will you be doing today?
She asked with a respectful bow.
I intend on ascending to the ninth heaven, as well as...
He reached into his spatial ring and retrieved the sword-shaped token, showing it to her. Tianer looked at the token and calmly asked.
Do you want to access that place now, or afterward? Let's do it afterward.
He quickly replied.
I understand. Then shall I start your trial now?
He nodded.
Go ahead.
Tianer gave him another bow before disappearing into the void. Soon, the darkness started to transform, and a large platform appeared beneath him.
When you are ready to begin, say I am ready out loud.
Tianer's voice resounded. Yuan took a deep breath and said loudly.
I am ready.
In the next instant, Yuan's vision blurred, and his scenery changed. Meanwhile, Xiaohua and the others watched from the spectators' room as usual.
I wonder what kind of trial the young master will have to deal with this time, considering that it took him a few years to complete the last one, and this one being his final trial in the stairway to heaven. It should be quite difficult.
Feng Yuxiang muttered out loud as she watched with anticipation.
What happened during the last trial?
Lingyue asked out of curiosity, as she was asleep at that time and missed it.
He fought with the Great One during his last trial.
Feng Yuxiang replied.
Then he'll probably fight the Celestial Emperor for this one.
Xiaohua remarked. You have started your first trial in the stairway to heaven. Once the trial began, Yuan found himself in a vast and deserted plain, surrounded by tall grass, distant mountains, and powerful, inhuman presences. A formidable force had seized control of the desolate continent and transformed it into the Giant's continent. Investigate the continent's situation.
The desolate continent?
Yuan mumbled after reviewing the trial details. This was the first time that he wasn't given a clear goal. He looked around. Sure enough, the environment looked like the desolate continent.
If I am on the desolate continent, then this formidable force is likely...
A certain individual with an overly friendly smile surfaced in Yuan's mind.
Kulis.
He mumbled this individual's name. After he and Ren Xia freed Kulis from the immortal confinement dungeon, he vanished like a ghost, leaving no trace of his existence for over 100 years. Then, one day, rumors surfaced from the desolate continent of a monstrous being with a colossal body who proclaimed himself its new ruler and slaughtered all who dared defy him. This individual was obviously Kulis, who had returned and decided to claim the desolate continent for some reason. Kulis, having pushed his great mammoth body refinement to its absolute limit, had become a near-unrivaled titan, an existence capable of slaughtering immortals with nothing but his bare hands. His flesh alone could withstand martial techniques and even deflect sword aura, making him a being few under the heavens could hope to defeat, much less kill. When Tian Yang learned of Kulis' return, he didn't rush to confront him. Instead, he chose to watch patiently from the shadows, as he was still a wanted criminal at the time, relentlessly hunted by the immortal clans. In less than a year, Kulis had seized control of the entire desolate continent using the name Great Mammoth, as he had discarded his former name. Because of this new identity, the immortal clans paid no attention to him and continued to focus their efforts on hunting Tian Yang. The only reason Tianyang realized Kulis' identity was because of his unique physique, which was a result of cultivating the great Mammoth body refinement technique. As the years passed, Kulis continued to increase his influence in the desolate continent and even established his own family, which rapidly expanded into a vast and formidable power that rivaled even the immortal clans in terms of combat prowess. Eventually, Kulis seized absolute control over the desolate continent and decreed that all outsiders not belonging to his family had 1 month to leave. When the deadline arrived, those who remained were mercilessly slaughtered. From that day on, the desolate continent was completely sealed off from the rest of the world, and all information regarding Kulis vanished for many years. When he finally reopened its borders, the continent had transformed beyond recognition, and even its very name was changed to Giants Continent. Compelled by curiosity, many ventured to the newly named Giants Continent. To their utter shock, its inhabitants were colossal beings who towered over buildings in an ordinary human city, instantly revealing the true reason behind the continent's new name. At first, people were either terrified or unsettled by the giants, but as time passed, they gradually adapted and grew more comfortable around them. Moreover, the Giants Continent proved to be a treasure trove of rare and precious resources, drawing countless cultivators and merchants to its lands. In time, the Giants Continent became a popular destination for aspiring cultivators. Its lands overflowed with opportunities, and its wilderness was home to formidable magical beasts perfect for honing one's strength. While Yuan recalled Tianyang's memories, an immense surge of killing intent swept toward him, cutting his focus short. Yuan instantly turned, raising his right arm before him. The moment he completed the motion, a massive blade came crashing down, yet he caught it with ease, leaving the ambusher stunned. After blocking the attack, Yuan lifted his gaze toward the heavens just to meet the attacker's eyes. The one who struck at him was a giant, both in size and cultivation, with strength at the 3rd level of God Ascension.
Impossible.
The giant exclaimed in a shocked voice after his sneak attack was halted in such a ridiculous manner by someone with a lower cultivation. The giant quickly attempted to reclaim his saber, only for terror to seize him when it didn't move an inch.
What the hell are you?
He shouted. Instead of killing the offender, Yuan simply let go of the weapon, causing the giant to stumble backward.
Care to tell me why you suddenly attacked me?
Yuan asked. Since he knew nothing about the trial, he chose to gather information first, hence why he had spared the giant.
That's none of your business.
The giant roared.
Not my business?
Yuan's eyes narrowed, a dangerous glint flashing within them.
You made it my business the moment you attacked me.
Sensing Yuan's killing intent, the giant trembled in fear. The next moment, he lowered his head and apologized.
I mistook you for a beast. I am truly sorry.
The giant's attitude had completely flipped.
What? Do you really expect me to believe that?
Yuan frowned. Something about the giant's behavior felt off to him, though he couldn't quite place why. However, one thing was for sure, that the giant was lying to him.
It's true. I was hunting a beast earlier, but it escaped in this direction. You and that beast are about the same size, so I mistook you for it.
The giant insisted.
I promise I'll be more careful from now on. And as an apology, I'll give you this, so forgive me.
The giant handed Yuan a leather pouch. Before Yuan could say anything, the giant continued.
My hunting buddies are waiting for me, so I'll take my leave now. See ya.
The giant immediately flew away, quickly disappearing from Yuan's sight. Although Yuan could have chased after the giant, his attention shifted to the leather pouch instead. He opened it a moment later, revealing a pill radiating dense spiritual energy. Any ordinary cultivator would have rejoiced at the sight, certain they'd received a precious treasure. But Yuan knew better, and beneath that surging spiritual energy, he could clearly sense the presence of poison. 2251 Colossal Mammoth City.
That giant really wanted me dead, huh? But what's with that attitude?
Yuan found the encounter so puzzling that he couldn't even be angry at the fact that someone tried to take his life twice in a row. However, when Yuan recalled what Tianyang had experienced upon returning to the desolate continent after Kulis gained control, he was no longer confused. After lingering for a few more moments, Yuan used his divine sense to survey the area around him until he found a city. After a short while, Yuan set off toward the nearest city, the southern stronghold. Along the way, he encountered several magical beasts, each ranging from the 1st to the 3rd level of God Ascension. Yet their cultivation wasn't the most intimidating part, but their sheer size. Upon reaching the city, he wandered through its streets, checking to see what had changed compared to Tianyang's memories. It's all giants. Yuan noticed very quickly that not a single human was present in the city. He also noticed the strange gazes directed at him ever since he entered the city. Though many tried to conceal it, their killing intent was as plain as the sky. Yet, despite having such bloodlust, none of them tried to attack him like the giant he encountered before. If things are like this, then... Yuan had a good idea what the trial was about and heaved a deep sigh. He left the city shortly after and began making his way toward the central region of the continent, toward colossal Mammoth City, the capital of the continent. However, halfway there, Yuan was forced to stop when his path was blocked by 3 giants at the first, second, and third levels of God Ascension. 2 of these giants had unfamiliar faces, but Yuan recognized one of them, the one at the 3rd level of God Ascension.
You couldn't kill me by yourself, so you brought 2 other people who are even weaker than you. One odd way of thinking.
Yuan remarked.
Be careful, brothers. Do not be deceived by his cultivation, as he was able to block my strike with his bare hands.
Said the giant, ignoring Yuan's remarks.
So you're done pretending you're not trying to kill me, huh?
Yuan said with a faint smile.
Let's get him, brothers.
Without another word, the 3 giants surrounded Yuan, forming a triangle formation around him.
Sorry, but I'm not in the mood to play today.
Yuan spoke in a low voice as his body suddenly surged with eternal essence.
What?
While the giants were momentarily stunned by the immense pressure created from his explosive aura, Yuan used void manipulation to close his distance with the 3rd-level giant.
You'll go first.
Yuan threw a space-shattering punch straight at the giant's face. The giant reacted quickly, raising both hands to block, but Yuan's fist tore through his palms and crashed into his face a heartbeat later. The force was so overwhelming that the giant's head burst like an overfilled balloon, his blood splattering in all directions. The remaining 2 giants widened their eyes in shock and disbelief, but Yuan didn't give them a chance to react. He activated void manipulation, and in the next instant, both giants plummeted from the sky, dead before they could even move. Without even bothering to give them another glance, Yuan continued his way toward the colossal Mammoth City. As Yuan continued his journey, he encountered more giants, every group larger than the last. Yet no matter their numbers, all of them were helpless before his overwhelming strength. Eventually, Yuan arrived at colossal Mammoth City, and unlike his last visit during the previous trial, the atmosphere was completely different, suffocating, heavy, and simmering with anger. Yuan ignored the atmosphere and flew directly to the massive castle located on the horizon.
Halt!
Of course, it didn't take long before someone stepped in to block his path. This time, it was a group of giants, each clad in full golden armor and wielding a massive halberd.
Humans are prohibited from entering this city. Leave if you don't want any trouble.
Said the soldier in the front.
Prohibited? Since when?
Yuan asked.
Since last year.
So it's been a year since this started. Yuan thought to himself.
Well, I'm here to see your leader, Giant Emperor Kulis. Get lost. You're not even worthy to utter his name, let alone meet him. Just tell Kulis that his rival is here.
Instead, the soldiers raised their weapons, pointing them at him. Yuan sighed. Then, he took a deep breath before releasing a powerful voice that echoed through the city.
Kulis, is this how you greet an old friend? Get your ass out here before I drag you out myself. This crazy bastard.
The soldiers exclaimed with shocked expressions.
He's gonna get us killed. We must hurry and kill him before.
A powerful presence suddenly descended, interrupting the soldier. Yuan raised an eyebrow at the presence. Although it was familiar, it didn't belong to Kulis. Soon, a figure came into view. Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly at the approaching beautiful woman with golden hair and emerald eyes and murmured.
CMA.
It was Kulis' youngest daughter.
Princess.
The soldiers greeted her.
Please don't worry, we'll deal with him right. No need.
She interrupted.
Let him through. He's an acquaintance.
The soldiers stared at her with wide eyes, but they didn't dare to defy her order and acknowledged it. Once the soldiers left, CMA, with a nonchalant look on her face, said to Yuan.
Follow me. Where's Kulis?
Yuan asked as he followed.
Father is a bit busy right now. Why did you come here, Senior Tion? Am I not allowed to visit an old friend?
CMA looked at him with a pondering gaze.
Did you encounter other giants on your way here?
She then asked.
I have. Did they do anything weird to you? If by weird you mean trying to kill me, then yes, they were acting quite weird.
She sighed.
Care to tell me what had happened to this place? In a bit.
She said with a slight nod. 2252 Unknown Sickness. Yuan followed CMA back to the palace, but before he even stepped inside, he felt an ominous pressure hanging over the place, suffocating the air itself. Sensing that strange pressure, Yuan silently confirmed his suspicions about the trial and mentally prepared himself. A short while later, CMA stopped before a room sealed behind a pair of grand doors.
Before we proceed, I must warn you about something.
Xia Mei turned to face Yuan with a solemn look on her face.
The Emperor, my father, he might attack me.
Yuan interrupted. Xia Mei's eyes widened at his words.
How did you?
Xia Mei didn't say anything, and after a moment of silence, quietly nodded her head.
I'll let you meet my father now,
she said as she opened the massive doors. As the doors creaked open, a lethal aura burst from the room, so dense it was visible to the naked eye, like a physical wave of killing intent. But this sensation was far more dreadful, it felt like the presence of death itself. Xia Mei's eyes tightened as she stared into the dark room. Yuan heard her murmur, barely louder than a mosquito, yet shaking with fear.
It's gotten even worse.
While Xia Mei's movements were frozen with fear, Yuan strode forward without any hesitation.
I'll be back.
Wait. Xia Mei reached out to stop him, but Yuan didn't stop, stepping forward and vanishing into the darkness. Inside, he narrowed his eyes toward the far end of the shadowy corridor, where a colossal silhouette sat upon a throne the size of a mountain. However, despite its immense size, the silhouette wasn't robust. If anything, it looked unnervingly thin.
Who goes there?
A coarse voice echoed through the room, sending chills down Yuan's spine, not out of fear, but because it stirred memories he would rather have forgotten.
Hey, Kulis.
Yuan calmly responded. The massive silhouette could be seen visibly trembling upon hearing his voice.
You are Tian Young. That's right. Escram.
Kulis suddenly roared.
I just got here, though. I don't care. Get lost. Is this really how you treat an old friend who came to visit? I'm not leaving until I see your face. Please, just leave. I don't want you to see me in my current condition. No, I don't want to hurt my only friend.
Kulis responded after a brief moment of silence.
Hurt me?
Yuan suddenly laughed out loud.
Do you really think you're even capable of that?
Yuan suddenly summoned some flames, lighting up the place just enough to see Kulis. When Yuan finally saw Kulis clearly, his heart trembled, though the sight wasn't entirely unexpected. Kulis, once a towering figure of strength whose muscles could make any body refiner envious, was now so emaciated that his bones protruded beneath his skin. He looked no different from someone who had been starved their entire life. Hell, he looked many times worse than when he was imprisoned in the dungeon. When Kulis first took control of the desolate continent and established his own family, he had been in perfect health. But sometime later, he suddenly fell ill with an unknown sickness, at least, that was what Tian Yang had believed when he'd first seen Kulis in such a condition. This illness caused Kulis to lose his rationality at times, turning him dangerously unstable. Worse yet, it didn't affect only him, but everyone who shared his bloodline suffered from it to some degree, spreading its influence across the entire giant race. Although Kulis was not their true ancestor, the giants had inherited power from his blood, much like how cultivators absorb the blood essence of magical beasts to gain strength. However, oddly enough, this sickness did not affect some females, primarily those with strong yin energy in their bodies, so Xia Mei wasn't affected by it.
Arf!
Kulis suddenly released a beastly roar, one that did not sound human, and his aura skyrocketed. Boom! His cultivation, at the 5th level of God Ascension, surged forth like a tidal wave, and his overwhelming pressure came crashing down upon Yuan. Suddenly, Kulis' appearance began to change. His golden hair and emerald eyes darkened into pitch black, while his pale skin flushed a deep rosy shade, almost like an overripe tomato, skirting the edge of a demonic visage, though lacking the solid crimson hue true demons possessed.
Senior Tian, please be careful. He's going to attack.
Xia Mei warned him from outside. Sure enough, Kulis suddenly sprang from his throne, shooting into the air before bringing his massive arms crashing down toward Yuan. However, Yuan didn't even bother to dodge. Instead, he met Kulis head-on. With eternal essence surging through his body, he raised his hands and caught the giant's devastating strike bare-handed.
You'll need to do more than this if you want to hurt me.
Yuan muttered softly as he overpowered Kulis, hurling him back toward his throne with overwhelming force.
Gulme, I'll keep you entertained until you regain your sanity.
Yuan beckoned toward Kulis, who was drooling uncontrollably and letting out animalistic noises, as though he had devolved into a wild beast. Kulis released a powerful roar before lunging at Yuan again. Despite his frail appearance, Kulis was anything but weak, and every strike he unleashed sent tremors rippling through the entire city. Yet, Yuan met all of his attacks head-on, blocking them with ease. Kulis rampaged without rest for 3 straight days, but eventually his body calmed, his appearance returned to normal, and he collapsed to his knees.
What should I do, Tianyang?
Kulis spoke in a weak voice.
There's this voice inside my head constantly telling me to kill. I cannot contain this madness no matter how hard I try, and it gets worse every time I lose control.
He lifted his head to look at Yuan with a pleading gaze.
Please, kill me before I turn into a monster. You're the only one I can count on.
Yuan didn't respond and merely stood there in silence. 2253 Unknown Sickness, 2.
What are you waiting for? Hurry up and kill me.
Kulis urged when Yuan remained silent. Yuan closed his eyes and sighed out loud.
I wasn't able to save you in the past because of my lack of experience, but this time, for sure. Save me? Can I even be saved at this point?
Kulis gave a hollow, defeated chuckle. In the past, Tianyang did everything he could to find a cure for Kulis, but alas, even after traveling the entire world, he was unable to find a clue to his illness. And while Tianyang traveled the world, Kulis' condition continued to deteriorate. It eventually grew so severe that he, and the entire giant race, abandoned their continent and embarked on a murderous rampage, slaughtering countless innocent lives. This ignited the first great war in history before the heavenly war of immortals and gods. Although its scale and destruction were nowhere near that of the heavenly war of immortals and gods, and almost nobody knows of its history today, it still devastated countless lives. In the end, Tianyang was forced to do the unthinkable, ending Kulis' life with his own hands. However, even after Tianyang ended his life, Kulis' suffering did not come to an end.
Get some rest, Kulis, and let me handle everything.
Yuan said to him.
If you say so.
Kulis mumbled before he closed his eyes and fell asleep where he knelt.
Good heavens, when were you this strong?
Xia Mei entered the room shortly after Kulis fell asleep.
I'm not as strong as you think.
Yuan said, shaking his head.
Well, you defeated my father, and as far as I know, he has never lost to anyone.
Xia Mei glanced at Kulis, then asked.
Do you know what's wrong with him? Or with the entire giant race, for that matter? It all began a little over a year ago, when father started having sudden bursts of temper. At first, we thought he was simply in a bad mood, but by the time we realized something was truly wrong, it was already too late. Medicines and treasures. Nothing we tried could cure him.
After a brief silence, Yuan replied.
I don't know the full extent of what he's afflicted with, but I do know its origin and possibly how to cure it. Really, that's great news.
Xia Mei was so overjoyed to hear this news that she started jumping up and down like an excited child. However, Yuan shook his head and said.
It's going to be risky, and I'll need some time to prepare. Take all the time you need.
She said.
And is there anything I can help with? No. Is that so? Then when will you be ready? Give me a week. Okay. If there's anything you need, let me know. I'll be right here.
Xia Mei said as she approached Kulis and picked him up.
I'll be back after I bring him to his room.
She left the next moment. When Xia Mei returned a few minutes later, she found Yuan sitting on the ground in the lotus position, his eyes closed, seemingly in a state of cultivation. What is that weird energy surrounding him? She wondered inwardly as she could somewhat sense the otherworldly aura around him. A few days later, Yuan suddenly opened his eyes and asked.
Do you know what an outer god or an eternal is? Outer god? No, this is the first time I've heard of it.
She said while shaking her head.
Does it have anything to do with my father's condition?
Yuan nodded and elaborated.
They're beings that exist beyond our world. Powerful existences that consider themselves the true gods of this universe. I don't know why, but Kulis' condition was caused by one of them. How can you tell?
Xia Mei asked.
I was told by one of these existences.
He calmly replied.
What?
Xia Mei raised an eyebrow. However, Yuan didn't elaborate further. Although Tianyang had failed to find a cure for Kulis in time, he never stopped researching the cause even after Kulis' death. Then, a few lifetimes later, he finally learned the truth from another eternal.
This illness doesn't target the body, it targets the soul,
he said suddenly.
It corrodes one's very essence, twisting them into a mindless killer who can only think of slaughtering everything around them. It's similar to how a cultivator might lose themselves if they fall to their heart demon. However, that's not even the cruelest part.
Xia Mei swallowed nervously as she wondered what else could be worse than corrupting one's soul.
Those whose souls are corrupted cannot reincarnate. They can only suffer until their very soul is destroyed. That means they won't find rest even in death. How cruel. Why would they do something like that to my father?
Xia Mei sighed.
These beings don't normally target someone without a reason.
Yuan said.
In their eyes, we're no different from ants, so they wouldn't go out of their way to do something like this for fun. Although I'm not entirely certain, I believe Kulis may have become involved with one of them and offended it. Of course, this is just speculation, and it's entirely possible that one of them just decided to mess with Kulis out of boredom.
Kulis' situation was very similar to Xiao Cangming's, who had once offended an eternal and been cursed for it. However, Kulis' case was far more severe. Although Kulis seemed perfectly healthy before the illness took hold, the reality was that he had long been broken within. Years of ceaseless torture in the immortal confinement dungeon had left deep mental scars, making him especially vulnerable to mental attacks, particularly those targeting the soul. Yuan closed his eyes and resumed his cultivation shortly after. After a few more days of preparation, Yuan opened his eyes again and said,
"Okay, I am ready."
Xia Mei nodded and led Yuan to Kulis' bedroom. Inside, Kulis was sleeping peacefully.
I haven't seen him sleep since he became sick, much less this peacefully.
Xia Mei remarked as she gazed at his sleeping face. She turned to Yuan and continued with a warm smile.
This is possible only because of you, Senior Tian. Just your presence gives Father peace.
2254 Curing Kulis.
I'm going to begin curing Kulis now. It might get a little dangerous, so you should leave us and wait outside.
Yuan said to Xia Mei. However, she frowned and said,
No, I'm going to stay here. You don't trust that I will cure him?
Yuan asked with a raised eyebrow.
That's not it. I just want to be here when he wakes up with a clear head.
She replied as she slightly shook her head. After a moment of silence, Yuan muttered as he approached Kulis.
Don't blame me if anything happens. I won't.
Upon reaching the bed, which was large enough to fit tens of thousands of people with ease, Yuan sat down and pressed his hands against Kulis' massive body.
I should also warn you, this process will require me to destroy his body, leaving nothing but his soul. What?
Xia Mei exclaimed.
You should have said that before we even entered this room. So do you want me to stop?
Yuan asked without even looking at her.
No.
Xia Mei responded after a moment of hesitation.
As long as his soul is unharmed, we can just make another body for him.
Yuan continued.
Creating another body?
Xia Mei echoed, looking utterly confused. The concept of crafting new vessels simply didn't exist in the early years of the primordial era. In fact, it wasn't known at all until much later, near the era's end, when more cultivators reached the God Ascension realm and realized they could survive without a physical body as long as their soul was unharmed.
I'm starting now.
Yuan spoke again before Xia Mei could ask him any questions, and as curious as she was, Xia Mei didn't dare to disturb him and silently watched from afar. A few minutes later, an otherworldly aura started surging from Yuan's body, and the temperature in the room drastically dropped in the blink of an eye. What is this coldness? Xia Mei cried inwardly as she shivered non-stop. As a giant, her body was naturally more robust and resilient than ordinary cultivators, allowing them to endure harsh climates without training. Xia Mei, who had never experienced such cold before, trembled uncontrollably, her teeth clattering together. Shiva's eternal frost. Since whatever was affecting Kulis was weak to Yin energy, Yuan enveloped Kulis' body with Shiva's eternal frost, the most extreme Yin energy he knew. In the blink of an eye, the entire room froze over with every inch of it encased in ice. Xia Mei enveloped herself with celestial qi, but it was useless against the power of an eternal. Even my celestial qi cannot block the cold. I'll freeze to death at this rate. Xia Mei, despite her earlier words and boldness, left the room after realizing that she could not endure the cold. Once Xia Mei left the room, Yuan's aura abruptly surged even more, almost as if he'd purposefully held back for Xia Mei. Now that he didn't have to worry about her, Yuan focused entirely on curing Kulis. Although Yuan had increased his eternal essence drastically after refining the essence of the void, he was still only able to maintain Shiva's eternal frost for a few minutes before becoming exhausted. Once he was exhausted, Yuan immediately started absorbing the illness that clung to Kulis' soul, refining it into his own essence. Time flew, and in an instant, a whole month had passed with Yuan focused solely on curing Kulis. Yet, to Yuan, who was constantly exhausting himself, the month felt like an eternity. After a month, Yuan had managed to completely absorb whatever was affecting Kulis. However, as a result, Kulis' body was destroyed, leaving behind a weakened soul, just as Yuan had predicted. Shiva's eternal frost had not only weakened the sickness but also caused irreparable damage to Kulis' body, and if Yuan hadn't extracted Kulis' soul, his soul would have likely shattered. Yuan collapsed on the bed, his body soaked in sweat despite the freezing temperature in the room. Although Xia Mei left the room, she never truly left and had waited outside for an entire month. When she noticed Yuan's otherworldly aura had disappeared, she immediately opened the door.
Senior Tian, what happened with the treatment?
She cried as she entered the room.
Don't worry, he's fine. I have removed whatever was affecting him.
He responded in a weak voice.
Thank you, truly.
Xia Mei said, bawling her eyes out, but her tears froze instantly due to the cold. Ding! You have cleared the first trial. After clearing the trial, the scenery around Yuan dissolved, and he returned to the stairway to heaven. However, while everything from the trial should have vanished, something remained with him. Yuan, still lying on the ground from exhaustion, stared at Kulis' soul that was hovering above him with a calm gaze.
Sorry it took so long, but now you're free.
Yuan muttered with a smile on his face.
You can finally reincarnate properly.
Since the unknown sickness prevented Kulis' soul from reincarnating, Tianyang had kept Kulis' soul with him, waiting until he found a way to cure it. Although he had discovered a method long ago, he lacked one crucial component, a yin energy strong enough to weaken the sickness so it wouldn't destroy Kulis' soul when trying to remove it. Then, after many reincarnations, Yuan acquired Shiva's eternal essence, the power that was needed to cure Kulis.
What are you waiting for?
Yuan spoke again when Kulis' soul remained unmoving.
You're no longer bound, so go reincarnate and live a new life.
Kulis' soul, which had been slumbering since the primordial era, began to wake up, indicated by the faint aura it emitted. Moments later, a familiar voice echoed softly.
Tianyang, my friend, my sworn brother. Though it may seem as if I've been slumbering ever since the day you killed me and sealed my soul, I was awake and fully conscious. The journeys you took, the hardships you lived through while carrying me, I was there with you, watching over you like some sort of spiritual guardian. Kulis, what are you? I don't want to reincarnate and forget everything.
He quickly answered.
I want to continue going on adventures with you, not as a soul like some luggage, but by your side, just like when we journeyed through Han Zishian's tomb together. Moreover, I still haven't properly thanked you for saving me.
Yuan's eyes widened, but before he could respond, Kulis suddenly bellowed, his tone resolute.
Forge me a new body, Tianyang.
Congratulations, you have finished listening to the current content.